Imagine that your loved one died on the job and you were left completely in the dark. That's been the reality for the family of Steve Wink. He was the PG&E utility worker who died in a fire zone just 2 years ago. And his family, they still have no answers.
I was a PG&E wife for 35 years. I'm devastated how they handled this. I don't think anybody should be treated like this on any fatality of a family.
As Steve Wink's family prepares for their now second Christmas without him, they are suing Solano County for mishandling the investigation of his death, and it may never fully be explained. Brandon Ritteman with our Firepower Money team breaks down the lawsuit and has an update on what PG&E is and isn't doing for the family since we first brought you this story.
Veteran PG&E troubleman Steve Wink died here, on the job, during the LNU complex wildfire in 2020. But you wouldn't know that reading his death certificate. It simply says he died of natural causes.
The death certificate is important to me because it reflects how he died. And to me, it's falsified. Bottom line.
Kim Wink, Steve's widow, says she's asked and asked, but Solano County won't amend the death certificate, even though officials from the sheriff and coroner's office told her on camera they shouldn't have treated Steve's death as natural.
It's absolutely an industrial accident, okay, and it should have been documented.
It's left Kim and her family in a kind of limbo.
This is a complex grief because there's no answers. And Steve was the rock of our family.
Society has a right and need to know how people are dying.
Kim's attorney, Tim Walsh, filed suit calling the coroner, who's also the sheriff of Solano County, negligent. A county spokesperson didn't reply to our request for comment on the lawsuit. Sheriff Tom Ferrara declined to be interviewed for our investigation, which found a cascading series of failures in his office.
An Amazon package gets better tracking than my husband's body did that day.
We found evidence of injuries to Steve, evidence that was destroyed when the coroner allowed Steve's body to be harvested for tissue donation before his official autopsy. That tissue donation wasn't disclosed in the coroner's report, which violates the county's own procedure. And the coroner's office also destroyed evidence on its own, the clothes that Steve was wearing when he died. Most concerning, though, to Kim,
people are dying in the community and they're not going out to the scene.
Solano County deputies got the call.
It sounds like he died, and it was a PG&E worker.
Oh, no. Okay.
I guess deputies will be needed.
And they didn't go. Why wouldn't they? It's unexplainable.
There's no record of the sheriff coroner's office going to the scene. Our investigation obtained these photographs of colleagues trying to revive Steve that day. They show damaged trees, utility lines, and Steve Wink's PG&E truck, all evidence the authorities let vanish.
Even if they wanted to investigate, 24 hours later, there was nothing. The whole place was cleaned up, almost like a crime scene. It's cleaning up before the police come.
There's one thing in those photos that gives the most reason to question the official story of how Steve died. Damage to Steve's PG&E truck. This metal ladder rack lying on the ground, it used to be bolted on top of Steve's truck. Here, it ripped off of these bolts, which used to hold it on.
There's no do-overs in this. It's gone. I mean, the scene is gone, so that was your one chance.
Pathologist Mike Doberson was a longtime coroner in Colorado. He investigated the Columbine shooting and other major tragedies. He called Solano County's investigation inadequate. And because of that, he says, we'll probably never know for sure what exactly killed Steve Wink.
There's a very strong possibility that something happened other than a natural disease process that led to his death.
Kim Wink wants the county to admit that on his death records. Her lawsuit also asks for damages you can't put a price on, the pain of never knowing how her husband died. Also damages she can put a price on, lost benefits that she would have received if his death was ruled accidental. On that front, Kim shared a positive development.
They will retro Steve's benefits back to me, which is the medical bank. that they denied me at the beginning.
Since our first stories aired back in May, PG&E wrote Kim to say that it changed its rules for surviving spouses and will now pay her that benefit. The company also lowered her monthly medical premium.
I think it's a great win for the widows. I mean, for me, all I could think about if I was in my 20s when Steve and I had 3 little kids, I would have lost everything without these benefits. And now I know that other families, are going to get it. It's nice that they're changing their policies, but there's still a lot that they haven't answered.
Kim says she's still shocked PG&E hasn't told her what it knows about her husband's death.
I didn't even know where he died for 5 months. 5 months. To this day, 2.5 years, they never have sat me down and talked to me about Steve's death on that day.
Kim still wants that sit down, not to be consoled. She says PG&E has explaining to do.
Well, I would like to know where the ladder rack is.
Who sent Steve up alone into the fire zone? Who took his truck down off the hill? What did the company learn from the evidence it gathered?
It would be nice to know these answers to these questions. I think as a widow and as the representative of the Wink family, it would be nice to know what they know so we can move forward.
Now, we did send a request for comment to the public relations people at PG&E, but they didn't provide a comment on this story.
And Brandon, one of the things that sticks out to me in this story is that ladder, that rack. What do we know about it?
It's a big, heavy metal thing. It runs the length of the bed of the pickup truck, and it held his ladder securely on it while he would drive around. This thing got ripped off the top of the truck, and that means there was some pretty significant forceful event that happened because the bolts actually ripped out of the metal frame of the thing, according to the maintenance worker at the yard where Steve worked. This would be a whole different ballgame if someone had gone out to the scene and measured how far away from the truck it landed, took pictures of it, studied it. Those are the things that really didn't happen here, and that's why we have so many open questions.
In this case, honestly, it wouldn't make sense in any other circumstance. I mean, if you think about a car crash and your loved one being in a vehicle and no authorities showing up and an ambulance just taking your loved one away, that would seem crazy, in my opinion, at least. Yeah, well, and you had the sheriff's officials admitting to Kim Wink that they should have treated this as an industrial accident. But there's also sort of a disconnect that I see here in the way that different workers inside of fire zones are treated. If he was a firefighter, if he was in a red truck, Steve's death would have been documented 9 ways till Sunday. There would have been a report this thick about where he went, what everyone else he was with had done that day, and pictures of the scene. We don't have that. And the bottom line is one of the big reasons we don't is because he was in a blue truck, not a red truck. And is there any legislation that the family is working to make some of those changes?
They've been trying to engage lawmakers, and they'd very much love to see legislation that treats these utility workers more like other first responders in fires. And they'd be happy as anything if one of these lawmakers would give them a call.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much. We appreciate it as always.
Appreciate you.
All right, and you can catch all of Brandon's reporting on Firepower Money at firepowermoney.com. All right, coming up after the break, California's paid COVID leave is coming to an end as COVID cases continue to surge. We'll have more details coming up. All right, we're going to get into some breaking news. More information we're bringing you following our 6 o'clock newscast. The University of California says that it reached a tentative agreement with the United Auto Workers, the union representing more than 40,000 academic employees who have been on strike for weeks. So the University of California says that it would provide minimum salary scales plus multi-year pay increases, paid dependent access to university health care, and enhanced paid family leave. If approved, the contracts will be effective through 2025. The University of California is thanking Sacramento Mayor Steinberg for stepping in as a mediator. All right, something else that's changing is in just a few weeks, California businesses will no longer have to pay employees for COVID sick leave. Cal OSHA, the state agency in charge of workplace safety, just voted to end COVID pay. The California Work and Family Coalition tells ABC 10 that they're worried that this will lead to more people getting sick because people who can't afford to take sick days will just go to work sick. They also say that Californians should be entitled to the more than already provided 3 sick days a year anyways. But others say that if we don't end the COVID sick pay requirement now, then when will we?
3 years into the pandemic, employers have borne these costs for a long time, and it's a fair time to say that it's the right time for those practices to end. Given our advances in vaccines and other drugs like Paxlovid, we're really in a different place than we were 2 or 3 years ago.
But this isn't necessarily the end, though. Lawmakers can still decide to extend the paid sick leave in the form of a law when they come back to the legislature next month. All right, this Christmas, some people just want some help by getting the bills paid, and you can help. We'll have details after the break. California is not a cheap state to live in. Inflation is making matters worse for everyone. But when it comes to housing, research shows that Black women struggle the most to afford rent in our state. Our race and culture reporter Candace Red shares how you can help.
It has been a very difficult road.
As a single Black mother, Michael Stafford says she's always striving to make ends meet.
There's very little quality of life if you're trying to maintain a household of children and do it all on your own.
Stafford says she, along with her 3 children, moved from Oakland to Elk Grove for a lower cost of living.
Financially, it's really the only option.
Now Stafford says she's renting a house with her sister and her children for $2,700 a month. Together, 7 people live in the home.
You know, just being a single mom, it's really hard to live alone, to afford even the basic essentials.
Although Stafford works a full-time remote job, she says she's still forced to decide between paying household bills or putting food on the table.
I've been to food banks. I've stood in those lines before.
And despite relocating, Stafford says rent remains the biggest expense.
The cost to house, just the rent alone, I could not manage on my own.
In California, Black women are disproportionately burdened by the high cost of living. That's according to a report from the nonprofit Gender Equity Policy Institute. It shows 59% of Black women and 42% of Black single moms struggle to pay for housing, and they spend the majority of their income on rent.
Always definitely prioritize rent.
Take care of the mom, that way the mom can take care of the rest of the family.
Black Lives Matter Sacramento, along with other organizations, is participating in an online fundraising campaign called Rent for Moms. The nonprofit Done for Dee started the campaign in Boston to encourage others to give.
It's a foundational resolution to the issues that are happening, and there's so many disparities, for Black women. There's wage gaps, there's discrimination with housing and discrimination against getting jobs. It's just a lot of things that impact Black women, and so we want to make sure that they're taken care of.
The goal is to raise $100,000 to help Black single mothers across the U.S. pay for rent during the holiday season.
It helps to give to somebody to relieve some of those stresses that happen every month when you know that you've got to cover and keep a roof over your head.
I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for all levels of single moms, and especially Black women. A lot of moms, parents in general, but are stressing about being able to provide for their children during this time, also celebrate the season.
The Rent for Moms campaign has raised at least $43,000 so far to help Black moms pay their rent over the holiday season. And you can also visit abc10.com/tothepoint to find out how you can also help. All right. As the great Mariah Carey once said, spread your wings and prepare to fly. And that's what thousands of monarch butterflies are doing right now, returning to their winter home in Northern California. And John Bartel is hitting the back roads of Monterey County to see the annual migration of the monarchs.
There's a number of reasons to visit the coastal town of Pacific Grove in the winter. For one, it's beautiful. 2, the temperatures are comfortable. And 3, the place is welcoming to visitors.
70, 79.
In fact, winter is when Pacific Grove's visitor count is at its highest.
What are these ladies doing behind us here?
What they are doing is that they are getting the count of all the monarch butterflies that are in the Pacific Grove Monarch Sanctuary. This is one of the largest overwintering sites for the western monarch in California, and we keep a weekly tally of how many we find.
Pacific Grove is known as Butterfly Town, USA. From mid-October to mid-March, you'll find thousands of monarchs literally hanging out downtown.
And monarchs utilize the entire habitat. They are resting in the trees, which is why their binoculars are pointed upwards. They utilize the flowering plants for food. They even utilize the underbrush, the leaves, and the shrubs to be able to climb back up.
Natalie Johnston is a volunteer butterfly counter at Pacific Grove Monarch Butterfly Sanctuary, and she says the eucalyptus trees planted in this area act as sort of a windbreak for the migrating insects, some of which have traveled for several states.
Why are they counting them? First off, why would you even want to know the numbers?
For one, for science. This is a very threatened species, and by getting these numbers, we can get the science that leads to environmental protections for them.
Butterflies help pollinate the food we eat. Without them, many plants would die.
So we humans, we sort of need them.
Exactly.
In the 1980s, scientists started counting clusters or groups of western monarchs hanging in trees. And since they started counting, the population has been on a steep decline.
In 2020, there were none clustering in Pacific Grove and fewer than 2,000 across. None clustered.
A zero cluster count is a pretty big deal because, other than the mountains of Mexico, Pacific Grove is one of the largest monarch overwintering sites.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you'd see like how big that little circle is, the size of your fingernail. Go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60.
Counting is a tedious task, but when it's done during the cold hours of the morning, it's easier to spot the clusters. And the good news is, the monarch numbers have increased since 2020.
It is a good indicator species. By studying how the monarch is doing over time, we can get an idea of how the entire ecosystem that they are part of is.
From the Monarch Butterfly Sanctuary in Pacific Grove, I'm John Bartel. Hope to see you on the backroads.
And you already know, Mr. Bartel is determined to travel to every back road in the state of California. And he's got you covered a lot of ground. You can find all of his stories on abc10.com/backroads, or it's very simple. You can just text the word backroads to 916-321-3310. And you know, we'll send a map straight to your phone so you can plan your own trip. All right, let's take a look outside. Speaking of road trips, if you're planning on going anywhere this weekend, we're going to see some chilly temperatures. A quick check of our Gilmore backyard here. Current temperatures, Sacramento 46, Modesto 44, Tahoe 14 degrees. Let's get a look at our 10-day forecast, though. We are getting closer and closer to Christmas. We're going to see some cold, frosty mornings and dense fog. Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Well, this Sunday, the Latino Center of Arts and Culture is putting on a pastorela in Sacramento. But this traditional Christmas play definitely has a modern plot.
Ladies and gentlemen, children and pets, we welcome you all. A pastorela you'll get.
Diego Martinez is an actor in the Latino Center of Art and Culture's annual Pastorela, which is happening this Sunday from noon to 5.
It's a Christmas story with a hint of comedy and political criticism.
We talk about a tradition that takes place in Mexico and other parts of Latin America. We get to bring that here. We don't have a whole month. That's why we're actually fusing pastorelas and posadas, which are different. Pastorelas are theatrical productions that tell the story of the shepherds on their way to baby Jesus, whereas posadas are about songs. People dress up as Mary and Joseph. They go door to door singing, asking for shelter.
On Saturday, volunteers will be transforming this space into an outdoor marketplace and theater, getting everything ready for Sunday.
Their families were immigrants who came here to work hard and to be free.
You know, I grew up in Mexico City, participating in pastorelas as well. So for me, being part of a pastorela, it's culturally important and just a reminder of home.
Though their future does not look very bright, the journey they take will show them the light.
A pastorela in Sacramento includes an outdoor market with the family, lots of family-friendly activities, and it runs from noon to 5 at the Latino Center of Arts and Culture on Front Street, and admission just $5. The play starts around 1 p.m. if you want to head out there. And before we go, all this week, we brought you our Mega Flood series right here on To The Point. If you missed it, there is another chance that you can watch it starting at 7 right after this show. You can stream all 4 parts of the series on ABC 10 Plus and as well as our Roku and Amazon Fire, because climate change is making mega floods twice as likely in California. But our question is, are we prepared? All right, have a great night. Have a great weekend. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey, it's Alex. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really love hearing from everyone, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. Reach out to me on Facebook at AlexBellTV, or you can email me at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send me a text message at 916-321-3310.